a senior consultant at SpaceTec Partners. So SpaceTec Partners is essentially a specialized consultancy focused on the space industry. We typically do management consulting, market development, innovation advisory services for the space industry as a whole, as well as some selected strategy and consulting activities, communication activities, and also public project management, mainly for public institutions in the space domain. So for the past few weeks and months now, really since the start of the lockdowns in most countries, we at SpaceTec, together with some of our commercial partners, Foxconn, an IT firm based in the Czech Republic, as well as Sixfold, a German real-time logistics visualization provider, have been working together with the European GNSS Agency to develop a solution to support border management activities across Europe. So essentially, what does this mean? We have created this app called Galileo Green Lane, which is currently available for Android devices on the Google Play Store. As well, you can access the site galileogreenlane.eu to learn a bit more about the project and see some of the things that we've been working on. Essentially, what we've designed is an app for border officials and freight transporters who are involved in the logistics industry. And we provide them with a real-time update of the traffic situation at selected borders across Europe. So here we go. Essentially, if we look at the start of the COVID pandemic and we look at sort of the border crossing times and the volatility of the situation at that point, what we see is that over that initial period, there was a lot of volatility with regards to the traffic flows and regards to actual transport capacity over certain borders. What we saw is that in some regions, such as the Benelux region with Germany, Netherlands, and so on, there was barely any issues. However, more on the eastern side, towards Poland, towards Hungary, there was a lot of traffic at the borders. This was also exacerbated, of course, with some of the member states closing their borders and other complications that arose in that period. As a result of a lot of the increased demand and increased waiting time at certain borders, the European Commission requested member states to basically support the flow of traffic at the borders. Essentially, what they did was that the European Commission labeled certain border points as priority crossing points. These border points correlated specifically to what's known as the 10T border crossing points, so the Trans-European Network, basically stipulating that the flow of traffic through these specific border crossing points should not exceed 15 minutes. So in response to this request, the European GNSS Agency responded by creating the Galileo Green Lane initiative, which was aimed to use GNSS and specifically Galileo functionalities as well to help support some of the border management processes. As a whole, we've been working and closely collaborating with several other European institutions. So among them is the DG Transport, or the Director General for Transport, DG DEFIS, which is Defense and Space, DG Home, which is Migration and Internal, as well as the Joint Research Center and the International Road Transport Union. So there have been a lot of different parties and stakeholders involved in this project, and we've been trying to solve or present a solution for these selected border crossings. As you see on this slide, this is the Trans-European Transport Network. Essentially, it is a coordinated network of road infrastructure all across Europe. 10T also actually extends to railway, water, and air, but for our purposes, we were focused mostly on the road transport and road infrastructure. As you see, there are around 9 main corridors that cut across Europe, which are seen by the different colored lines on the screen. So what were we trying to do with Galileo Green Lane, and what does it actually mean? Essentially, the app has 2 separate interfaces, one for the border officials and one for the actual transporter, the freight transporters. What we're aiming to do is work with border officials at the scene at different crossing points to provide some more visibility on the traffic flow at their borders. Simply put, the border officials were requested to classify the border in somewhat regular intervals as a simple green, yellow, red, determining whether the traffic flow was less than 15 minutes, between 15 and 60, or over 60 minutes. So as you see here, this is basically the process flow for border officials. They have the app on their phone. They're able to classify it on the left-hand side with 3 easy buttons. They can supplement their information and comments with actually a geotagged photo of the scene to show what the traffic looks like from their perspective, as well as add any extra notes or comments that they wish to before sending it to the server. The second interface was focused on the transporters, as I previously mentioned. For them, the flow was slightly different in that rather than asking them to classify the border, we, with their consent, requested their anonymized location data in a geofenced area surrounding the borders. So when they reach around 1 kilometer in front of the border, their location is tracked and sent to our servers to help update the overall situation. So for drivers, they have basically 2 views. One is of the overall situation across all borders to see what the waiting time is or the predicted waiting time at several border crossing points, as well as specifically the situation at the borders that's nearest to them with a few routing functionalities. Now, the main, let's say, value added of the solution is the data visualization aspect. So our they already had an established telematics fleet from their own private activities, which they were using to create sort of the visualization map you see in front of you. So they developed it initially as a response to COVID. And then with the support of the GSA and other European institutions, it's been about helping to supplement the data and cover a lot of the missing points and help validate a lot of the work that they've been doing. So to do this, we collect, as I previously mentioned, we collect data from the border officials, from also truck drivers using the app, as well as Sixfold's internal data. So this initial period was just sort of a pilot test of the solution, really to validate whether the solution is actually as effective as we imagine it to be, easy to use for the officials involved as well, and also just generally to work out some of the kinks and see whether it's really a solution that can scale EU-wide after the coronavirus period or even during this coronavirus period as it goes on right now. We worked with the Hungarian officials and the officials from the Czech Republic to start off with the pilots, piloting at 3 Hungarian borders and 6 Czech borders, receiving data at a regular rate from the officials at the scene. Currently, we just concluded the pilots actually at Spain and Greece, who joined the whole pilot initiative a bit later than Czech Republic and Hungary, and the pilot is still currently ongoing in France. As a next step, the idea is to look back and see some of the lessons learned through this project and prepare for the actual scale up of the solution across the EU. So when we look at the coronavirus situation as it is right now, and in terms of how it's affected logistics across Europe, what we see now is that over time, of course, the situation has managed to stabilize as well, partially due to a lot of the transports decreasing as the restrictions were in place, but also due to the fact that some member states have changed some policy decisions to switch up some of the border controls. However, we still see some volatility in some areas, especially more on the east with Hungary. And so it is really a day-to-day situation. The situation is constantly evolving, and so it's hard to make any real predictions about what's happening. Essentially, the solution that we are offering with Galileo Green Lane is to provide overall more visibility on the situation so that freight transporters and their dispatchers are able to make decisions in advance and also support them in rerouting their own trucks based on the situation as it stands. So if the traffic at one particular border is much higher than expected, the drivers and dispatchers are able to reroute, look at a different border, and choose a different path. In terms of some of the results that we've seen in this pilot period, of course, this has been a pilot period, so we haven't been, let's say, promoting it as much yet, and we've been trying to work out some of the kinks. However, as of these statistics are a little bit old, but as of I think last week, we had around 3,000 installations of the app, and we've recorded quite a lot of information from drivers crossing over 93 border points, spanning around 27 countries across Europe. which we see as quite a success, and shows also the utility of the solution as a EU-wide solution rather than just a specific solution for specific nations. Yeah, so that sort of summarizes some of the work we've been doing with Galileo Green Lane. As I said, the app is available right now for Android devices on the Play Store. For the actual scale up of the solution, we will look into porting it over to the iOS, and also in general looking at different ways of expanding the reach and increasing the efficacy of the solution for the wider public. As a general, let's say, large-scale goal, although this solution was really designed as a COVID mitigation response, it is something that could have a lifetime outside of COVID, just in general for the logistics industry across the EU. So with that, I will conclude my presentation here and open the floor, of course, to any other questions.